It's live, baby.
Yeah. What's going on, my good people? It's your boy Chef C with Chef Fanny here, representing Fannyb00, right? And here we are on What's Cooking with Fannyb00 podcast, episode 2, right? You know what I mean? Let me get my little applause going on. I don't know what's going on. Let me get back in the bag though. You know what I'm saying? I get that double applause. So, we're definitely glad to be back. We definitely had a fun time with the first one, right? And we appreciate everybody who liked, shared, commented, viewed, anything,
Subscribe.
Right. We appreciate all the support, always, that we're just trying to, at least, drop some gems to you guys and hopefully you guys, find it entertaining in between, the information that we're feeding you guys, right? So, it's just, at the end of the day, we're doing this for you guys, right? So we appreciate you guys. We appreciate all the feedback and everything. And, we just kind of want to jump right in, just a quick recap of, episode 1, right? We talked about a few things, right? We talked about how Fannyb00 started, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the first product, right? The peach cobbler cheesecake. We talked about the inspiration for starting, right? We talked about your favorite foods, how you got into cooking. We talked about all of that. We touched on some of the main products, right, and services that we ended up doing, though. Today, what we want to talk about, right, the main subject or the main topic today is always a good one, right? It's one of my favorite ones, right? So today we're talking about, right, is the customer always right? Let me get that a little round of applause though, because I like that one, right? So is the customer always right? You hear this all the time, right? Throughout business classes, like you work in various places, right? And the main thing the managers or the person in charge always try to emphasize is the customer is always right.
Yeah.
So, throughout our journey, right, we've kind of, been on both sides of it, right? We've kind of experienced the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, right? So what I want to talk about today, right, is kind of how we kind of came to the point where we developed a grading scale or somewhat of a rating scale, as far as, our clients, the customers, and then, kind of once you develop that, right, we kind of are able to, kind of make judgments based off of that, right? But I want to let you talk about it, right? So talk to us about, rating and grading clients, right? How you go about it and some of the criteria that's involved with your evaluation.
Okay, so rating your client. What is a good client? A good client is consistent. A good client is precise. A good client is timely. A good client values your time and your service. A good client knows what they want, or they are they're able to make decisions. A good client is the decision maker.
Absolutely.
Just to name a few. So we can start with just that. A good client, can afford your service. That's definitely a major thing, because just off top, if they can't afford it, it's just going to be a hassle the entire time.
That's very true, right? So let's give a round of applause for that as well, right? So we talked about, what's a good client and some of the criteria, right? So, I wanted to dive a little deeper, right? Because, obviously, it's very subjective, right? Depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, always.
What a good client is and that kind of stuff, right? So, you talked about, a good client, being able to afford your product or service, though. Dive a little deeper into that for us. So
their budget is going to be one of the first things that you need to assess, and getting that information without coming across as money hungry or rude is definitely an art and a skill. So you can just phrase it, we start off with an intake, and that intake includes, be it for meal prep catering or private chef services, it always includes what is your budget range. Right. And we specify that although you are providing us with your budget range, it doesn't mean we're going to max it out. It doesn't mean we're even going to hit it. It just allows us to know, as your service providers, what you can afford and what we can do with your ideas and your vision that fits within your budget. Because the last thing we want to do is get your vision, lay it all out for you, and then the number comes and it's like, whoa, I can't afford that.
Right. And that's, that's very important, right? Because you don't want to waste anyone's time, right? Like,
exactly.
Everybody, time is money, right? You hear that everywhere you go. Let me give a round of applause for that, because you always hear about time being money, right? You go work a job, you trade your valuable time for whatever your paycheck is, right? So time is money, right? So when you run your own business, you gotta be very careful how you spend your time, because time management is very important.
It is. And just really quick, as an entrepreneur, you're wearing very many hats. So not only is your time money, but your time is money times 10, because when your client or potential client is using up your time, they're using up the time of, in our industry or for our role, the chef, the marketing manager, the CEO, the COO, the shopper, the delivery person, the planner, the everything, the decorator, all of the above, every single thing that goes into it, the accountant. So now you are taken away from all of those things that you put your time into to give your 100% undivided time to your client or potential client. So time definitely is money times 10 when you are an entrepreneur.
Right. Definitely a round of applause for that. So, another one of the criteria, I don't know if you mentioned it, right? But it's one that's very important. And obviously, it's something you have to learn as you kind of learn on the job, right? Because when you first start, you're not quite sure how to necessarily price your product, right? To be fair to yourself, fair to your customers, right? You don't necessarily know what the market is, right? Because what you're coming with is something different, right? Because you're lending something different to the game. But talk to us about communication, right?
Okay, so I didn't say communication, but that is definitely a huge factor. So first off, they need to respect your boundaries, and they need to be clear with their boundaries up front. So if you have a client who's always messaging you at midnight, 2 a.m., some people like to work around the clock, and that's fine. I work around the clock. Am I available around the clock? No, because again, my time is money, and I am I'm wearing multiple hats, and I am playing definitely several roles. So, at 2 a.m., I am not the receptionist or the planner or the liaison. At 2 a.m., I'm a chef, or I'm, whatever it is that I'm doing at that time. So you definitely want somebody who's going to contact you during respectable times, and you want somebody who is going to respond to your questions. You want someone who's going to be as thorough as possible, as detail oriented as possible, because this way you have a better idea and understanding of what it is that they want and they need and how you can execute it. So if you ask them a question or a series of questions, you need somebody who's going to respond and answer all of those questions. So like, you don't want to have to ask the same question 1,000 times because they just haven't answered it. That's an instant red flag.
Right. And that plays, along into the professionalism, right? So us being providing that, professional service, right? It starts with the communication. Definitely. Right? Because the whole initial exchange, right, or transaction initially starts from some kind of communication, right?
And it sets the tone. It sets the tone for the entire interaction, the entire situation, gig, whatever you want to call it, but it definitely sets the tone. Just how they approach you, even down to like if there's a greeting or how that goes about,
A salutation goes a long way, ladies and gentlemen.
It definitely does. And go ahead.
Oh, no. I can't emphasize that enough, right? Because, not only are we a business, but we're also human, right? So you can't forget that part when you're reaching out to, small businesses.
100%.
Business owners, right? At the end of the day, they're running a business. They have a team, whatnot, right? But at the end of the day, they're human. So ultimately, just providing, just being a little bit personable, or, having a little bit of genuineness, right? goes a long way though.
Yeah.
You know, as business owners, we definitely appreciate those who
like we understand, you know, we're probably the 10th to 20th person that you've spoken with all day or reached out to, but a good morning, a hello, a hi just goes such a long way, because opening a message that says you do meal prep is definitely going to set a tone that's completely different from a message that reads, hello, how are you? Or hello, I'm interested in your meal prep services. I've seen many pictures online. Do you have some pricing? Just the way you inquire, definitely that already sets the beginning. It starts the rating process, because you're instantly like, okay, this is someone professional. This is someone who knows what they want. And you're letting us know, you know, oh, I've seen some pictures, or I got your information here. I tried your food at a party I went to, something like that. It definitely lets us know how to go about, you know, interacting with you.
Absolutely. And you know, right. You know, it's never going to hurt to let us know, you know, how you found out about us, to be as informative upfront as you can, right? So
transparency is everything.
It goes a long way, right? You know, so the more you know, are willing to share or are willing to kind of put up front or provide up front, like the easier the whole encounter will be, right, from beginning to end, right? So it's not it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? You would think it should. It's not. We're not asking too much, right?
It's like,
but for some people, you know, we guess it is, right? So with that being said, right, I kind of want to talk about you know, we talked about, you know, good customers, right? What is the customer always right? And so as far as like a bad customer, right? or maybe some of like the worst customers, what would you, or after you pretty much describe the criteria, right, of a, you know, bad client, good clients, right, and what they should be, right? Do you have any examples of like what some of the worst customers we've dealt with? Or you don't have to go into certain details, right? That would obviously give it away, but you know, can you kind of give us a snippet of you know, a bad customer we had?
All right. So there was this one. We did a few jobs for her, and she wasn't a bad client in the beginning. She started off as a great client. You know, she reached out, she saw us online, she booked, she sent the deposit. Then, you know, the venue was fine. We went, everything, you know, she paid in full the day before, which is the deadline. You know, everything was good. She followed the guidelines and the rules and regulations that we have for our policies. So that was fine. Second job that we did, it was a little bit delayed. She wanted to pay cash because we had done a job for her before. I was like, all right, usually we don't do this, but I'll make an exception and I will take cash for the second half of, you know, for the remaining balance, and just pay us, you know, when we get there. So we did that. She actually ended up shorting us $20. Not a big deal. It was a bigger job, but she contacted again after that. And at that point, you know, I'm kind of like, you're not a great client. Like, I appreciate you coming back, but you're really not a great client. So, you know, it starts off with an unrealistic expectation as far as what her budget is going to get her. And she also just didn't have very many details. It kind of was just very vague. She wasn't sure of her head count. She wasn't sure of her venue. She wasn't sure of her menu. Her budget was way too low for what she wanted. And
that always goes back to, you know, providing as many details as possible at the beginning. I can't reiterate that enough.
So definitely.
A little clap on that.
So then once I gave her the initial quote, she was like, you know, I told her, you know, the main thing that you want is your entire budget. So this just, you know, either you got to cut that or you got to increase your budget. It's just not going to work. So she gets irritated. She has an attitude, and it's like, attitude's objective, you know, depends on who you ask, right? So I'm like, you know, whatever, these are the facts, here you go, either you're gonna pay or not. So she increases her budget, she knocks off a couple things, moves it around, whatever, to make it work for her. Cool, not a big deal. She pays her deposit like regular, but then she asks if she can use EBT to give me her card so that I can do the shopping with her card. And, you know, I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, I don't do that. It's illegal. I'm not getting tied up in that mess. It's just not, I'm not doing that. So that was a hard no. offered to refund the deposit, but she just wanted to have us do her event. So she figured it out, got us the money, so that we can go ahead and do the event. Her venue changed at the last minute. So literally the night before, she's like, oh, I know I told you it was going to be at this place in this city, which was, you know, clear across town in one direction, but it's actually going to be in this other city. I don't have the address yet, but it's going to be in this city, in the opposite direction. Luckily for us, we were right in the middle of the two, so it didn't make too much of a difference.
Right,
but,
right.
You know, had we not been, it could have been detrimental, especially being the day before, because it ended up being a really big job. We had like 20 different menu items. It was a lot. So
with this customer, this particular client, right, it sounds like there was just like a lot of hassle, right, going outside of the process, right, lack of communication, right, like we talked about, and just inconsistency, right?
Definitely.
So ultimately, like, how did things end, or what was like a takeaway that you walked away from that experience with?
So that experience taught me to set my boundaries, my professional boundaries, and to stand firm on them. For very many of them, there's some things that I hadn't considered. There's some things that I was willing to bend on, but after that instance, I decided enough is enough. These are my rules, and if people cannot abide by them, that is fine. They can go find another caterer who can handle their job.
And when she says I, she means we, ladies
and sorry.
Because at the end of the day, right, you know, a lot of these decisions, right, you know, as far as like who does, you know, the initial consult, you know, the initial intake, right, it may vary, but, you know, a lot of that, you know, we'll get into the specific things that we both kind of take on, you know, later on down the line, right? Yeah. But, you know, I just want to reiterate the fact that, you know, the boundaries,
I misspoke for sure.
But when we say I, right, we'll both slip up and be like, I, because we are Fannyb00, right? Yeah. So just don't take it the wrong way.
Yeah, you know? and also at different points in the journey of our business, either one of us may have been handling something a little heavier than the other. So at the time of this specific client, I was doing all of the customer interactions. So at that point, it was like, I'm stressed out, and I would, you know, I'm telling him, because we're doing it together, we're doing all the work together, and it's like, you know, he's like, well, then just cancel it, you know, whatever. And I'm just like, no, I'm invested, like, you know. So again, like after that, you know, knowing how I am and how I handle certain things, I decided, you know, it's best that we set these boundaries, so that I am not a crazy, stressed out wreck.
So again, right, how things ended though? You still haven't got to how things ended.
So we dropped her as a client. We did do that job. We did do the job. The energy just wasn't what I would have liked for it to be on our end, and that doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right with me. Just I put my heart into all of it. We touched on this on the first episode. You know, I pour my heart in everything. You pour your heart in everything. We're very passionate people.
Right. So just kind of, you know, as far as not to cut you off.
Yeah,
right?
No, definitely. But that's how it ended. That's how it ended.
Yeah. So that's the worst customer, right? Give us a quick example of like one of the better customers, right? What were some of their characteristics, and what are some of the examples of that?
Okay. So easily our last few clients have been exemplary of what a perfect client is. They contact with the salutation. They have all of the details. Hello, I am planning a brunch for my husband. The head count is 20.
Again, they're following the criteria, right? So, but in a specific example, right? You don't have to go too far into details, but break us down like maybe somebody who was, I mean, there's multiple ones.
There's several.
Right. So what were some of their characteristics?
So they had all the details up front. They were flexible with their budget. Mm-hmm. They were realistic in their expectations. Any information that I needed, they provided. They were easy to schedule with, very pleasant every time that we had to communicate. There just were no issues. It was just very easy.
They also, you know, referred a lot of people, which was very pivotal, right? Yeah. And we always appreciate it, right? Because as a small business, right? You definitely have to decide how you're going to allocate your funds, right? You know, you got your marketing, you got your overheads, you got, you know, all the pretty much your essential operational costs, right? So once you get past those, right, you got to try to decide, right, how you're going to specifically allocate. So you know, starting off as a small business, your capital might not be as large as, you know, maybe a larger company, a household name, right? So you're going to rely on a lot of word of mouth, right?
Yep.
You're going to rely on a lot of referral services. So you're going to, you know, the better your professionalism is, the more likely a client is to refer, you know, one of their friends, right? So once you get into the right group, the right network, you know, things will definitely kind of balloon for you, though.
Definitely.
And that's a lot how some of our success came, right?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
you know,
plenty of our,
we got in some good networks. We were able to, you know, please, you know, and we always, you know, we had, you know, the marketing budget we did have.
yeah,
You know, we were able to kind of, you know, really, you know, get our branding out there, right? With the business cards, right? We've got the stickers, we got the labels, we got, you know, the matching uniform, we got the whole nine, right? So when people see the presentation, they see the presentation, they see, you know, what we deliver, what we provide, right? And they see the brand, it starts to, you know, kind of register to them, or it's like a seed gets planted, right? So as soon as they want to have an event and they want to get, you know, the same kind of experience provided for them and their family, friends, etc., right? Then, you know, that's, you know, that's when they're thinking of us, or it's coming to their heads, and hey, let me dial Fannyb00. So we appreciate all the good customers who definitely made those referrals, right? And the ones who are going to make future referrals, right? Because it never stops, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, ultimately, you know, that's definitely, you know, opportunity to learn a lot, right? From good customers, right? Bad customers, the experiences, whether positive or negative, right? You should come out of there with a lesson, right? So
absolutely.
I think, you know, we've definitely come out of there with many lessons, right? So I want you to touch on real quick, as far as, like, you know, what we learned, and how it has, like, helped us evolve to, you know, where we are now, right? Because you touched on, like, setting boundaries, right? Identifying clients, rating clients, right? We got the criteria, right? So how does that help us evolve to where we are today?
Knowing what to consider when entering a situation will definitely better prepare you to handle it appropriately. It allows you to manage your expectations appropriately. It allows you to know how to respond in a way that's going to suit the situation,
right?
And it just allows you to just immediately know how to move forward and how to, like, just how to get things, how to just like streamline it, pretty much, you know. Like, just the more information you know, the more you're able to just immediately turn that into, okay, this client is an A+, or this client is a C because of these reasons. All right, this is how I'm going to go about this, or this, I'm walking away.
And the reason the grades are important, right, is because, you know, ultimately, right, after you kind of get a good reputation going, right, you get some success, right, eventually, right, you'll start getting, you know, more bookings, right? Your calendar will fill up, and then the future calendar will start to fill, right? And then you'll start getting people reaching out on the same day at the same time, right? And you want to be fair, right? Because at the end of the day, we're not a large team. It's only us two, right? And then shout out to Big Bro. He used to jump in when he could for a couple gigs, right? But for the most part, it's been us two. The wheels holding the vehicle together, right? So as far as, you know, You know, as far as, you know, being able to kind of, you know, identify those clients, evaluate them, it allows us to make easier decisions as business owners,
Yep.
right? Like, so if two people reach out at the same time, one to A, one's maybe a D, C, or D is probably do not work with again. C,
Yeah.
if they're C, right? We'll hear them out, see what they, you know, see what they're looking at, what they're gonna
Just
do.
be wary.
Right.
Yeah.
But and at the end of the day, we want to be fair to everybody, but
Yeah.
we can only be, you know, it's only two of us. We can maybe be two places, you know. However, you know, we like to work as a team, right? Husband and wife, right?
Yeah.
So it works easier like that, right? And if you're doing it by yourself, it's tough, right? With the setup, from the setup to carrying it in to doing all of that, right?
Yeah.
So you and that's just the catering, right?
Yeah.
So and
No,
then
100%.
and even with the meal prep, right? You know, as far as, you know, just assistance, right, of being able to do the deliveries, right? Somebody, you know, you just want to divvy up the assignments, right? Make sure everything's delegated to the point where, right, we're both interchangeable. However, we both have our necessary strengths that really kind of stand out. So, you know, and it's not to say, right, like, you know, we're giving out false grades, or we think we're better than anybody, or we're putting, you know, this and that, we're putting classes on people or nothing like that. It's just, again, right, it's just basic information you need to know to make the best business decisions for your business, right?
And just as a consumer, you would rate a business that you either want to return to or not.
Same thing.
As a business owner, you rate a client that you want to service again or not. Again, time is money. And just like your clients are spending their money on you, you are spending your time on them. So how do they want to spend their money, and how do you want to spend your time? So do you want to spend your time dealing with the hassle of a C minus D plus client, or do you want to spend your time, you know, being paid the exact same amount, dealing, you know, not even dealing with, but having the pleasure to work with somebody who is an A plus customer?
Right. And then that kind of, you know, it kind of segues us into the next kind of like thing, right? And like, you know, ultimately the reason, right, you know, obviously is to make the good decisions, right? But it comes down to, you know, always the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
However, you know, in between that, we do have, we're people too, so we do care about our, you know, our customers. We do want to provide a good service, make sure we go over and above and all of that, right? So, but ultimately, right, you get down to the nitty gritty, right, and you want to evaluate the value of a good customer versus the value of a bad customer. Yeah. So when you look at it, right, without going too deep into dollars and cents, excuse me. Excuse me. You know, I got to wet the whistle real quick. But without going too deep into dollars and cents, right? As far as the value of a good customer and the value of a bad customer, right? Talk to us about, you know, recognizing the value of a good customer versus the value of a bad customer, and how it affects the business.
Well, a good customer is going to add value to your business immediately. A bad customer is going to bring your business down, in a sense.
It's that simple.
Yeah, like just simply put, that's just what it comes down to. A good customer is going to give you good business, not stress you out. So now your lifespan isn't shortening. And they're going to refer other good customers, because their network, typically, you know, birds of a feather flock together. And
Very true.
And so they're going to refer other good customers who are going to support your business, who are going to promote your business, without even being asked. You know, we've had so many good clients who, and we thank you all. We really appreciate it, because it definitely has contributed to major growth in our company, who, you know, hadn't even utilized some of our services, but promoted them to other people. Like we've had meal prep customers who are like, oh, I have a friend and they need catering. I know you do catering. So is it okay if I give them your information, you know, or vice versa? Catering who's like, oh, my whatever needs meal prep. Can you do that? And then you on the flip side, you know, a bad customer is going to stress you out and waste your time pretty much.
Really, the time is the most valuable asset.
Yeah.
Right?
They're going to take up more of your time, which takes away from the time and energy you can put into other clients, be they good or bad. Like, but still, they're taking up more of your time,
right?
Which is, at the end of the day, it's what you have the least of to give, right? Like it's limited. No matter what, you can't get the time back. So they're going to take up more of your time, and they're either going to refer other bad customers, or they're going to, on the worst case scenario, they're going to give you a bad review. No matter how good of a job you do, they're just going to be bitter, miserable, upset, petty, whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is that they are feeling. And they're going to try and sabotage by giving you bad reviews, or somebody may bring you up, oh, no, don't do business with her, based on their experience. And it could just be their perspective. They may feel, that was a bad experience for them as a customer because, the service was too expensive. They asked too many questions. They needed too many details,
Right.
And again, we're just doing what is a part of the job. So, we're not asking you a million questions because we want to be annoying or nosy. We're asking you a million questions so that we can do the best possible job at executing your vision.
Provide a better service, right?
So, again, all of that just takes away from you, and it's draining. And now there's less of you. Even if you're available, you're just a lesser version of yourself to offer to other potential clients.
And again, why that's important, right? The bad customer, right?
Yeah.
Providing a negative value, even spreading a negative word or whatever, losing time, right?
Yeah.
Like all of that, those are your resources, right? Those are some of your main resource and assets when starting a small business, right? So if you give, too much of anything away, it could destroy you almost,
absolutely.
Without for lack of better words, right? So ultimately, right, and relying heavily on that word of mouth, right? You just don't want to take the risk of getting one of these customers that's like never satisfied, that's always looking for something to complain about, or that's always trying to, one up a owner or something like that, So, your best bet is to just, learn quickly and vastly how to identify them, how to weed them out, and how to move forward with good customers. So, that's one of my takeaways from it. Ultimately, that's one of the main things that I've learned, right, is within this experience, right? No matter where somebody's interested in the seasonings, which we have 3 flavors, right? You can always get these. Hit us up on social media. If somebody's wanting to inquire about the meal prep, somebody wants to know about the catering, right? The first thing we want to know, bam, how's your communication? What are you looking to do? And while we can help you, you can help us at the same time. Though. So what about you? What's one of your main takeaways, from this, right? To kind of wrap us up here.
Well, just honestly, just on a more personal note, more personal level, it kind of just taught me how to speak up for myself. I'm an only child, just real quick. I'm an only child. So, I didn't have any siblings. So I didn't really grow up like having to fight for my right or anything. But so as an adult, I never really spoke up for myself. And so entering a business and learning to set boundaries, that's very important. Learning to speak up for myself on those boundaries, learning to, it could be a potentially good client, but if they're showing these red flags, they pay late, they're not on time, the communication's bad, I can't get a hold of them. Yes, they have the money, they can afford it, but is it worth it? Heck no. So, and where relying on your business, you want to keep clients who can afford your service because it offers stability. At the same time, you don't need to take on everything that comes along with it if it's not positive, because it's going to affect you negatively in the long run. And being able to speak up, and it's like someone who thinks they're a good client is going to be arrogant and is going to be entitled when it comes to your services, and that's another situation that we had in the past, and it was very difficult for me, but I overcame something inside of myself the day that I told that client, we can no longer service you, we have these policies, you do not abide by the policies, if you cannot change your ways, we cannot service you any longer.
Good, and that's a very good point, right? I appreciate that. You kind of diving back into. You went a little deep on us, right, with the psychology of kind of growing up as a only child, right? But
Just a couple seconds.
all some of this stuff, it plays a part. How you interact with clients, different people, how somebody may come up, they're angry, there's different situations. Sometimes you got to put out some fires though, so ultimately, being even killed kind of helps, right? Keep your highs low and your lows high, kind of helps, stay in balance, ultimately helps, right? But, as some of these tips that we're going to provide you week in and week out with these episodes are definitely going to help, right? So identifying, good customers, bad customers, right? They'll help you, kind of avoid the stress, the negativity, right? So, we appreciate you guys for dialing in. We appreciate you guys for listening. We always, love, our Fannyb00 supporters, right? We got our seasonings up right here. We got 3 flavors though: the honey heat, the lemon heat, and the citrus sweet, right? So dial in for those though. We got the cookbook coming soon,
very soon.
So you definitely want to keep the eye out for it. We got we got a lot of good things coming up for you guys though. So we want you guys to be a part of it and kind of stay in tune with things that are going on. And we'll do our best to, give you guys that information you guys need. So, again, like, subscribe, comment, tell a friend to tell a friend. Fannyb00 done it again. It's What's Cooking with Fannyb00, and we're out.